last time we have been working together in breakout groups again with the prompt to reflect on our resourcing, our inspiration, and our service. These three components enable our hearts and minds to open up and in that way connect with the fundamental properties of reality, truth, beauty, and goodness. And these three properties of reality were first mentioned in the West by Plato, who lived about 420 to 350 BC in Athens. And they were called as the three transcendentals and often linked to the qualities of the divine. And they are made manifest in feeling and sensing, thinking, and willing and action. And what we try to do here is particularly, the feeling and sensing, so that then that might influence our thinking and, of course, also our action. So working from the ground up with the direct contact, with reality through feeling and sensing through the body, and also, appreciation of beauty and apprehension of truth as it comes to us through different wisdom teachings, and in particular, the teachings of the Buddha and indigenous teachings, and the teachings of the earth herself. So, to inspire the heart, mind, the citta, as it's called in the Pali language, to open up so that it is capable, for a deeper kind of listening that aligns our hearts, thoughts, and actions with the intelligence of life itself as it presents as our home planet Earth, which is sitting within the universe. But in particular, the attention which is needed now to the deep challenges, which our home planet is experiencing because of the ways, we have developed technologies and we wield those technologies in ways which are destructive to our own well-being and to the well-being of so many other species. So the earth has become our teacher, our hands-on teacher, because we do need to urgently remember our roles as her steward and participants of her evolution. We have forgotten that, we've gotten sidetracked, we have gotten intoxicated with science, technology, and in particular with the fossil fuels, which have enabled us for 70, 80, 100 years, to produce previously unknown amounts of energy, to move things around. And now this energy is running out. And also we can't afford burning it anymore. So that's called the carbon pulse, which has distorted so much of our way of relating to Earth and to ourselves. And we are caught in that deep, it's like a web, sticky web. And how do we get out of there? How do we dissolve that skillfully? And, besides many other books, one particular book I really recommend, which is called Hospicing Modernity, which is about hospicing something which is not working any longer, so we can come out from under that distortion. And one way how we try to work with this here on the Wednesdays is training ourselves to reconnect with the forgotten psychological adaptations stemming from deep time, from the times when we were still living as hunter-gatherers, which is actually the longest stretch of human evolution on this planet. It's about 2 million years long, and the challenges we are struggling with now is a very late, very thin layer of about 10,000 years, and in particular the last 100 years, where the fossil fuel pulse has sent us into a complete delusionary way of relating to the planet and what the planet offers. So, to remember the psychological adaptations which our forebears have worked with for about 2 million years, when they were hunter-gatherers living highly mobile lives in small egalitarian groups. And the psychological adaptations result from this primordial way of life and are deeply inscribed in all of us. And without the knowledge of this existence, we cannot understand ourselves today and what we need to remember, because it has been forgotten but not lost. And I just want to share an image with you to give you like an optic prompt, and see what it brings up in your heart, in your mind as you see that. It's a beautiful image of a group of early humans. And with archaeology and modern science has been able to help us to better understand our evolutionary history. And we know that these deep yearnings for connectivity are not simply a matter of superstition. These are ancient evolutionary acquired structures of human psychology, rumbling around in us, and demanding sometimes more, sometimes less satisfaction. These very deep, deep yearnings, which also get exploited, with business, with plant medicine, with shamanism. There's tons of offerings on the internet, and not all of it is genuine. So understanding that, that this deep yearning is part of who we are. That's very important to be able to sense into that. And, I myself have lived on an island in South Thailand in the 1988, with a fisher family where the oldest son was my boyfriend then, and I have also fallen for romanticizing all of it then, because this very deep yearning for connection, which that family had to a certain extent, definitely much, much more than my own family where I was coming from. I was deeply, deeply called, to follow that, to follow that fascination, until, I started to see also behind the curtain of what fascinated me, and then, that really brought me in the end to Buddhism. So this deeply influencing evolutionary structures, it's important to understand them. And even the most so-called rational among us carry this evolutionary heritage within us. And only by becoming aware of this ancient conditioning can we deal with it sensibly in a contemporary way, and at least, prevent dangerous outgrowths. Like, for example, the QAnon shaman, at the storming of the Capitol in 2021 was such an example. He was a very obscure icon of that whole, making America great again, going back into the past and, playing with that deep yearning and using it, not necessarily to uplift and open the mind and the heart, but the opposite, So it's time to finally identify our psychological burdens from the past and develop an appropriate way of dealing with them. And I think, by, these practices we are using together are deeply rooted in the Buddha's brilliant Dhamma. So we can say yes, to these deep callings of what it means, to be a human, an earthling, but not getting lost. So, using these very deep callings as an inroad into remember what it means, to be a steward and a participant of the evolution of the earth, but not getting lost in it, in a sense of romanticizing it and, making more of it than what it is. This is the art, the middle way between taking the opportunity of the energetic capacity to lead us onwards into this deeper connectedness, but not, without seeing it in the context of the way the mind works, greed, hatred, and delusion. The Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, all of that is our security scaffolding, to be able to allow ourselves to be called in this way, but not getting lost. So let's find a posture for meditation now. And just allowing that to sink in a little bit. The opening sacred space for restoring ancestral relationships with planet Earth as our, we can call it mother or ground of these bodies. Sensing the gravity which keeps us in our seats. And with the out breath, letting go of any stress or tiredness, whatever you're bringing here today. And with the in-breath, breathing up the vastness, the stability, the stillness of the earth as our ground. and as the total community we are participating in. Being influenced by the sun and the moon, the stars. In this unfathomable vastness of reality, which cannot be understood through thinking, but we can sense into the aliveness of our own bodies, which is the same aliveness everywhere. That vibrancy, the hum, and the ring of the mother's ornaments as she moves through life, doing what needs to be done to keep this going. And all of us coming and going. And a few days ago when Joanna Macy has passed away, she's one of the great first teachers, of bringing this understanding into the mainstream with the work that reconnects. Beginning with gratitude for everything which is given. The gratitude for being able to sense into truth, beauty, and goodness. That's where we begin. And that's, what distinguishes us from indigenous people, the capacity for gratitude, because it's part of the education, part of the upbringing, this deep knowing of the interdependence. We need to re-establish that knowing, and it's totally doable. It's just a very thin layer of forgetting. It's very noisy, and very kind of crazy in some ways, but it's not a huge, unsurmountable something. It's just 10,000 years or even 100 years, in relationship to 2 million years of living as hunter-gatherers, completely embedded. No cities, no wheels, no riding. So, allowing the breath to take us into belonging to this web of life. Rather than being caught up in the web of modernity. That is just such a tiny, tiny part of what makes us human. Breaking through that into the depths of our evolutionary history as beings who have emerged out of this planet. In different places, and now is the time to restore ourselves to that community of a more than human world. By sensing and feeling through the body as an organ of listening, which is made from exactly the same stuff as the bigger body of the earth. And all other bodies out there in space. And sensing, feeling into that rather than thinking about it. Thinking is not going to help to establish the connection, to re-establish the connection. But it's more like by strengthening the connection, then the thinking can be informed by that depth of connection. And then actions will also come forth from that depth of connection. They will be different. And that's what we want to see. We want to see actions which support sustainability, respect, long-term thinking, future generations. That's what we need. And that's what we try to do here. Stumbling along as we are finding the path by the love we bring to this work. Because solutions from a disconnected place do not gain traction. We need to reroute and let solutions come from that place. So no need, to work hard, but it's more like coming along with me on the journey of the guided meditation. A series of, invitations to the mind, to the heart, micro adjustments really, which add up over time and through repetition. It's like learning an instrument, learning a new language. It's maybe not easy, to learn a new language, but it's doable. Just, noticing that you have arms and legs and how you are, powered by the breath. And, noticing this creates a little bit more space. Around our experience. And that's exactly, where we start, by making a little bit more space so that we may be able to see more clearly who we are. There are many systems in our body working for us. Without us actually, needing to get involved. Especially as long as we are healthy. And then sometimes, we need to take in some substances to amplify or cut back on certain of those systems. Keep it in balance. The digestive system. Maybe you've just eaten breakfast or dinner and can sense, the food being worked with, metabolized in there, the heat which comes from that, radiating out and, through the stomach, walls, it gets distributed throughout the system, the whole body. Mystery how that all works, but it obviously does work. Then the respiratory system, the breathing in the oxygen, which is produced by plankton and also by the green plants, a side product of photosynthesis. Before green plants, came here, in particular algae, there was no CO2 on this planet. It's all been accumulated through their action. And then the circulatory system, the bloodstream being pumped around the body by the heart. Permeating the flesh, the organs, all of the soft things, soft parts of the body. And the nervous system, which allows us to sense. Not only material things, but touching or hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, but also so-called non-material things, which appear to be non-material to our eyes. The vibrancy of space and silence. We can sense into that. Even it looks like nothing is here. And the fluid system, which keeps us moist. The mouth, the eyes, the skin. The skeletal system, which holds us up. The bones, the teeth, the nails. And the endocrine system, the hormonal system, which is very influential also. So, honoring the intelligence of all of these systems. Like an orchestra. And just seeing, what you notice as you're looking in this way. What are you noticing? You're not pushing yourself, but just becoming more precise, to be more connected with all of it. But just listening into the body, with the body. Not by thinking about it, but it's a momentary understanding, like an intuitive understanding, to really stand under it, to really go as close as you can directly by sensing it. And as we are doing this, over time, the directness of it is becoming deeper. So we're sinking in deeper. Like, if you have a heavy stone sitting on the soil for a long time, it sinks in. The rain and the seasons, it just sinks in deeper and deeper. Slowly, the action of the earthworms underneath, opening up the soil, and then that also makes that stone sink deeper in. And in this way, we become more and more capable of experiencing the embeddedness as a medicine, like a homeopathic dose. A reality check. And then, bring to mind the place on the planet where you were born. Or, if that doesn't work for you, a place on the planet you love. Bring that to mind. It might not be identical with the place where you were born. And see what emerges. You don't feel the love for that place. And also the love that that place has for you. That special place where you have emerged out of the earth through your mother. So bring that place closer as a resource, as an opening which takes you deeper into the mystery of what it means, to be an earthling, a human. At this time, where we need to shift our relationship with the earth if we want to continue. The simplicity of standing under this awesome connection. We are always already in that, but we need to call on that. We need to remember that. Because that's what the evolutionary process wants from us. As we are maturing into becoming again participants and stewards of the earth, after going like on a sidetrack for a blip of time, intoxicated by fossil fuels and all the richness, it has enabled us to produce for a very short time the carbon pulse, which is over. This is not the first time, that we are waking up, barking up the wrong tree, going down the wrong lane, just coming back, no problem. That's just how learning happens. You don't always get it right the first attempt, but now it's pretty urgent to turn around. And using this deep ancestral adaptive psychological knowing to guide us, and the Buddha's teaching and other wisdom's teaching as a support to protect us from getting lost in that information by romanticizing and trying to satisfy the ego. That's not gonna be helpful. This can be dangerous. And knowing samsara can't be fixed, but trying with all of our might, as long as we are in it. Because we can't really pressurize our way out of it. It doesn't work. It's just aversion. So again, coming back to what's called the middle path between suppression and indulgence. That's the great brilliance of the Buddha. And combining that with the juiciness of the aliveness of reality. Not just as a place, to get away from. But also a place we care for with gratitude and appreciation for the beauty and the wonder. A kind of re-enchantment. Which brings life back into the path. Because we need energy to be in connection. And, work with the stress and the stretching, which the maturing and the growth is producing. It's hard work sometimes, to stay with it and not shut down. Collapsing. Or going into simple solutions, black and white extremes, that won't work. It's much more subtle and messy than what we like it to be. And we can take a break consciously. That's okay. And sensing where you are right now, where you're sitting in your life, and feeling the care for where you are with all of this evolutionary urge to evolve and grow, and being part of the immune system of the earth in this time of great challenges, where there is the old consumer capitalism trying to pull us back into believing this is the only way and destroying everything just because of being lazy, of being afraid of change. This life isn't about just comfort. It's about growing through participation in what's happening. With the support of the precepts and the refugees, slowly, stumbling in the right direction, that's as good as it gets. But it's much better than going in circles, going under. There's a beautiful, image in the scriptures. The Buddha speaks about the raft, which takes us to the other shore. And he says, taking like the twigs and the vines you can find on one shore and making something out of it. You can paddle with hands and feet. It's good enough. Doesn't need to be an ocean liner. Can just be that, a little piece of flotsam, made out of a few twigs and branches and vines, paddling with hand and feet. And, looking with whom you are paddling together as we are crossing. That's what's happening. And it's doable. That's what the Buddha did, and that's why we have this teaching. So, yielding into our true nature. Interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh called it. And noticing what's happening in the body as you yield in that way. Yielding into that flow. And seeing if there's any inspiration, any opening which comes forth through that connection. Through sensing and feeling this aliveness. And sensing also the willingness in your own being, your own body, your own heart, really wanting to live from that place. That evolutionary call, to develop and mature out of modernity into that which doesn't have a name yet. With all of our ancestors behind us, underneath us, and future generations in front of us, depending on us now. As we are opening to life itself to guide the way. And adding something small, to what we have received as being part of these long lineages of humans, which have become so influential on this planet that they are wreaking a lot of havoc at this point. How can we support pulling back through connecting and listening and humility? And becoming part of the immune system of the planet at this crucial time. And the joy and the honor of being able to connect in this way. My first teacher, Ajahn Buddhadasa, would call it, something better than usual. So much more satisfactory than what we can buy in the shops. Once we have enough to just live a life, there's lots of things we don't need. And slowly coming back into the body and the weight of the body, And then whenever you feel ready,